Hello, you're watching the video for the probability review assignment. This one you're going to do, I'm going to work through it a little bit differently. You're not going to get the exact answers on the page because I want you to do this on your own. Probability is about sort of uncertain events, so I'm uncertain how your events will play out. Now, what I want you to do is find a coin. I've got a nickel here, right? If you don't have a coin on hand, go to Google and type in flip a coin. And you'll have a little site where you can flip a digital coin, and it works effectively the same way. So we're going to flip a coin. Right? You can see this time it came up heads, right? It's a heads. It's a guy's head, right? So it came up heads. It's one of those funny looking nickels. So it flipped and it came up heads. And so you're going to make a little tally on heads. Okay? You're going to flip again. And here we get tails. And so you'd mark down tails. And you're going to do this over and over. You're going to flip a coin 10 times. So flip your coin 10 times. You got tails again. Make another tally. Well, you're going to do that. And you may get 4 heads and 6 tails, or 6 heads and 4 tails, or maybe even 5 and 5. May have come up the same either way. That's also possible. I've had students who ended up with 10 heads in a row. Some had 10 tails in a row. These things simply happen. But whatever you get, you're going to get some number of heads. I don't know what that number is, so I'm just going to write an H. And some number of tails. I'm going to write a T. But don't write down you the student, do not write down H or T. Flip the coin 10 times. Pause the video now if you need to, but flip your coin 10 times and write an actual number here. Not H and T. So you're going to take that number, however many times you flip how many times you got heads, however many times you got tails. You would flip 10 times. So you're going to get H, whatever that number is, whether it's 4, 5, or 6, or even 10 or 0. However many times you flipped heads, you're going to put an H up top. And that number up top, not an H, put that number up top. And however many tails you got, you're going to put that number up top. I'm not writing a number because I don't know what your number is. And I'm not going to give you a number. I want you to flip the coin and get the number yourself. So, you're going to get that. So H over 10 and T over 10. But we could also call it, H tenths or T tenths. But of course, what you'll have is something more like 4 tenths or 5 tenths. Or here it would be 6 tenths and 5 tenths, right? You'll have some actual number here. I don't know what you'll have, but you'll have something. And whatever you get, you'll do 0 point, whatever that number is, 0 point some number. Maybe it's 0.4, maybe it's 0.5. That's what would follow from here. And then you have 0.6 if you had 0.4 there, and 0.5 if it did come out to that, right? But you get the idea. It's 0 point that. Now, I've been saying 0 point, but you could also call this 4 tenths, or 5 tenths, or 6 tenths, which is also what we call this fraction. So you'll get some decimal here, and then you'll get some percentage. Now, the way I'm writing this is funny, I know. But the point I'm making is that you'll end up having 40%, because that's 0.4 as a decimal, or maybe you'll have 50%, or maybe you'll have 60%, or maybe you'll have 50%. I don't know. You might have 0% and 100%. I don't know what you'll have. That depends on what coins you flip. But you're going to put your data here. Now, This is what we call experimental probability. This is what you got from an experiment. It's repeated activity where you record your results, right? Now, that's experimental probability. You'll also have theoretical probability. Oh, and whatever number is higher, which is greater, the theoretical probability of landing on heads or the experimental probability? Well, your theoretical probability is what you'd expect. Let me ask you, if you flip 10 times, how many heads would you think you would get? Well, if it's fair, if it's a fair coin, you would expect to get 5 out of 10. Now, I do want you to write 5 out of 10. Write 5 out of 10 for sure, because that is the theoretical probability, is 5 out of 10. But your experimental probability is what you got here. I'm going to say your H out of 10. But maybe it was one, it's going to be one of these numbers that you wrote here. Okay? So take that number and put it here. Okay? And there you can compare this number and that number. It may be higher than 5, it may be lower than 5. It may be equal to 5. I don't know. But you'll write and say whatever you got. According to the experimental probability, what is the likelihood of the next flip landing on tails? So we consider your tails. Whatever number you got is your answer here. Maybe it's 6/10, maybe it's 5/10. Whatever it was, you'll write your number here. Flip a coin 10 more times. So you'll flip your coin. So take your results from earlier and write them here. Maybe you got 4 or 5, maybe you got 6 or 5, but you'll write whatever number that is there. I don't know what it is, but you'll write it there, okay? Now, your second trial, you're going to flip again. So flip your coin 10 more times and record your results. You may get different numbers. I'm going to say H with a little 2 and a T with a little 2. Say that it happened twice. Right? That's your second H and T, right? It'll be a different number that you get. And whatever you got, do H plus H2, take this number and that number and add them together. Take that number and that number. Whatever you got, I don't know, whatever you got, add them together. And that'll be your total tallies. Then, you're going to take your result and you're going to put it in a fraction over 20 flips. So take your answer and put it over 20 flips. And then write it as a decimal. Earlier, we saw that 4/10 equaled 0.4, 5/10 equals 0.5. In this case, it's over 20. So if you want to, you can take your number and type it into a calculator. Maybe you got a total of 12 heads between your two trials, divided by 20. If you got a total of 12, divided by 20, you'd get 0.6. Maybe you got 11, divide that number by 20, that's 0.55. So find your decimal, 0. Some number, I don't know what. There'll be some other number here, 0. something. And then you're going to take that number and you move it over 2 decimal places and you'll get some percentage. I want you to do that on your own. Convert decimals to percentages. If you're not sure how to do that, come back to this after doing the PBL assignment and give me your answer. Like that, I'll show you how to do decimals to percentages in that video. You should know how to do this by now, but if you don't, you can see my other video where I show that in the PBL battle math video. So you're going to get some decimal here. which you can compare to some decimal up here. I don't know your decimal here. Those are your numbers. Whatever numbers you get, compare them to these. So compare your two decimal sections, and we can say whether it increased or decreased. Subtract your two decimals. For heads, the likelihood of landing on heads may have increased or decreased. If it stayed the same, if it stayed 10 out of 20 or 5 out of 10 both times, you can say it stayed the same. Maybe it's 6 out of 10 both times. I don't know. But if it stayed the same, you can write stayed the same. But if it didn't, subtract the two decimals and put your answer here. So don't write this, but put in whatever your difference between the decimals were. So if you got 0.4 the first time and 0.6 the second time, you're going to subtract them, or just find the difference. Don't do negatives. If you get negative 0.2, just write 0.2, right? So you go from 0.4 to 0.6, and there you'd get 0.2. So it's that difference that you'll include. And whatever you get, include whether it increased or decreased. If you subtract the first decimal from the second decimal and you get a negative, it likely increased. If you subtract it, you get a positive, it likely decreased. But you'll do that, and then do the same thing for your tails, and write your answer there. So that's that. This is a pretty short assignment, but do it, complete it, hand it in. Super simple. Get a grade on it. Don't take a 0 on this one. Okay? Thank you for watching, and you have a good day.